All right, good evening, everybody. I think we'll get started. I'm Sheriff Gary Redmond. First of all, I just want to thank everybody for being here for such an important issue that has never been faced by Amador County before. So thank you all for taking the time to come help support us, and hopefully we have the outcome I think we're all hoping for. So for tonight, the reason why I wanted to have a town hall tonight and get everybody together was, one, to show solidarity that Amador County is together and that we're not going to accept this. And also some education and really let everybody know what we have been doing, because this is a first for Amador County. And this program started in 1996. I've been here for 25 years and we've never had a sexually violent predator tried to be placed in Amador County. So there is some misconceptions that I've seen already out there of when people talk about Penal Code 290, which is a sex registrant, they think, they're being dumped here in Amador County, and that's not the case. 290 sex registrant is completely different. A lot of times those are either through probation or parole or cases out of Amador County, but they're also legally able to move around the United States and live in different jurisdictions. There are some rules that apply when it comes to 290. But there is no preclusion that we can legally keep a sex registrant out of Amador County. So I just wanted to make that clear. And this is a different animal than a sex registrant 290, somebody who's been classified as a sexually violent predator. So with that, I'm going to make some introductions of who's up here tonight. We've got our local senator, Maria Alvarado Gill, with us tonight. We've got our district attorney, Todd Reeby, and we also have our chief probation officer, Mark Benini. And all of them have come together to try to stop this, and we're going to explain some of the process and the issues. So after that, I think we can all agree that there is nobody that wants this person in Amador County. If you have a different opinion, I would highly suggest you not come up and give that opinion. But that's just me. You're entitled to your opinion. So if we can agree with that, I would prefer not to have people come up and talk about how horrible this is. Really, this is a question and answer. If you have questions or concerns, we want to hear. That's what we're here for tonight, is to kind of alleviate, hopefully, some of the anxiety that's out there. And I'll be quite honest, I don't know what's going to happen. I get asked if we're going to be successful. I don't know that answer. I think we are moving in the right direction, though. So some things have recently changed, and District Attorney Reeby is going to talk about some of those changes that just took place with the Placer Court on Monday through a court order. I'll let him discuss all the legal issues that are going on sort of behind the scenes. So this first came to my attention on March 6th when I received a letter from the Department of State Hospitals. I get a lot of emails back and forth from DSH based on our jail facility. And I open it up and I'm figuring, okay, this is another jail facility issue. And now I'm reading what they're trying to do is place a sexually violent predator in Amador County. I go through the procedures and I'm like, how did they get to Amador County? How did you come about with extraordinary circumstances? And even in their own procedures, they admit that it is under extraordinary circumstances to not be the county of domicile, to place that into another county. So my question is, how in the world did you get to Amador County? And I can tell you folks that has been unanswered up to this point. So I dispatched our detective unit to go up there and do a risk assessment, because my first question is, did they do a risk assessment? What is this location? We immediately discovered that, yes, somebody from Liberty Health did go up there. They did not talk to anybody. In fact, they refused to answer questions. They didn't know that there were grandchildren and other children that would be present at the two locations that share this driveway. They did not know that there was a bus stop. There were a bunch of unanswered questions when we actually contacted Liberty Health of who's going to monitor this person. Traditionally, when we're involved or probation is involved, it's through probation or parole. And we are involved in that monitoring process. We are told, oh, this is going to be monitored by Liberty Health, so a healthcare is going to monitor this. Our question was, what happens when they offend? What happens when, through GPS monitoring, the power goes out? What happens when they're at the junior high school? Who is going to be notified? How? There was just a myriad of questions that were unanswered, which really led me to believe that they were negligent in picking this location. We don't have the resources, we don't have the support mechanisms in place to be able to, and honestly, this is their goal, is to successfully transition this person back into society. I can tell you based on data and history, they typically reoffend, and in fact, this person has already reoffended. And then was placed back in the system. I did invite Liberty Health. I did invite DSH to this meeting. They declined, and quite frankly, they gave me a statement that I feel is somewhat dishonest because they claim that the court ordered them to look at Amador County. And based on what we have found from the court, that the district attorney, Reby, was able to get a minute order that said that the court allowed, under extraordinary circumstances, which once again we don't know what that was, to go to other counties. Amador was included in that county. So the fact that they're trying to tell me that they specifically were ordered to look at Amador County only is, in my opinion, dishonest. And that's where I feel that the negligence also comes into play with Liberty Health. So that's kind of been the process up to date. I've honestly had to educate myself because this is new to us. This program, like I said, has been around since 1996. The law did change under SB 1034, which was enacted in 2022, and it took effect in January of 2023, so this year. The law changed, which really kind of, they looked at this program and said, if they're going to go to another county that wasn't part of this person's commitment or domicile, they really have to involve those counties that they're seeking to put this person in for that input. Obviously, that was never done. I think by them trying to get this slipped in on December 5th through the Placer County courts shows another pattern of deception. So with that, I will give it over to District Attorney Reby.
Thank you, Sheriff Redmond. I'm going to cover some areas with you tonight to inform you, first of all, what the law is regarding sexually violent predators, what has happened thus far in Amador County, who is William Stephenson, and then what can be done. And part of that is what other counties have done when this has happened to them. First of all, the sexually violent predator law. It was created in 1996. And a sexually violent predator is defined as a person who has been convicted of a sexually violent offense against one or more victims and who has a diagnosed mental disorder that makes the person a danger to the health and safety of others in that it is likely that they will engage in sexually violent criminal behavior. That's defined in the law. California Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation, 6 months prior to the parole of a suspected sexually violent predator, shall refer the person to the Department of State Hospitals for evaluation. That person is evaluated by 2 psychiatrists, 2 psychologists, 1 psychiatrist, 1 psychologist. The bottom line is they both have to agree that the person meets the criteria of a sexually violent predator. The judge the DSH notifies the county of commitment, which in this case was El Dorado County. The county of commitment then files a petition for commitment to DSH as a sexually violent predator. That would have been the district attorney in El Dorado County way back in 1990, probably late 90s, early 2000s. A judge in the county of commitment, which is El Dorado, reviews the petition and determines whether it supports a finding of probable cause. The person is entitled to counsel in a trial by jury. At trial, the court or the jury shall determine beyond a reasonable doubt that the person is a SVP as defined, and if so, shall be committed to Department of State Hospitals, I'm going to call it DSH from now on, for an indeterminate term. Indeterminate means it could be for life. Every year, the SVP is evaluated. If DSH no longer believes a person meets the definition of an SVP, they can, number one, receive an unconditional discharge. That means they just let them out. Or two, and much more common, they receive a conditional release to a less restrictive environment, which is what they're suggesting for Mr. Stephenson. Now we get to what's happening in our case. For those persons who are determined to receive a conditional release, they shall be placed in the county of domicile. That is, in this case, Placer County, unless both of the following conditions are met. Number one, the court in the county of domicile, Placer, finds that extraordinary circumstances require placement outside Placer County, and the county of placement or proposed placement, Amador County, was given prior notice and an opportunity to comment on the proposed placement. We have, through Sheriff Redmond and I, in the joint letter and in a separate letter that I wrote and sent out on the 17th of March, you have 15 days to respond after you get notice. We got notice on March 6th that Amador County was selected as the proposed county of placement. We had 15 days to submit a written request, or a written position, which we did. Then they said that there was a hearing that's set for April 7th, which is this Friday. Can I tell people what's happened with that? We received notice because we were asking about, information. The law changed in January. It would have involved our county as a proposed county of placement in this whole process. It would have given us information that they had, declarations under penalty of perjury from county Placer officials and other participants in the process, like Liberty Healthcare, that to attest to their robust and exhaustive search for housing for the sexually violent predator in their county. And since we also received a letter, I did, on September 29th of 2022, it contained a minute order stating that the judge there had given authority to Liberty Healthcare to extend their search to the greater Sacramento area to include Yolo County, Sutter County, Sacramento County, El Dorado County, and Amador County. So I want the declarations showing that for all of those counties, that documenting the efforts that they took to try to secure housing for Mr. Stephenson. And I've asked the court for that. We have a hearing tomorrow. I have to state my arguments justifying why I think that we're entitled to it. I think we are entitled to it under the new law. I know that my friend Morgan Geyer, who's the district attorney in Placer County, has talked with Judge Horst, who is the judge that's been assigned to this case, and he has assured me that the judge believes that even though the time that the decision was made by the court on December 5th, 26 days prior to the new law taking effect, that found extraordinary circumstances justifying the placement of Mr. Stephenson in another county, to wit, Amador County, that it isn't fair because the placement is occurring after the new law is in effect. And the hearing for this Friday will be vacated tomorrow. That will buy Amador County more time to get the information that we need to intelligently argue our position to the court. So it's important that you know that. The only notice we've received thus far that he's coming to Amador was an email that was sent with Dropbox documents on March 6th of this year. Sheriff got it, I got it. That's what got us busting out to make sure that we made a written response. Thus far, and to date, we have received zero information from the court in Placer County regarding the efforts taken by that county or Liberty Health to place Mr. Stephenson in a safe place within Placer County. The new law, as I said, took effect January 1st of 2023. It provided much more transparency. It mandated that the county that is the proposed county of placement be involved in the process. Actually, the police chief and the sheriff in the locality of placement are supposed to be involved in that process, and to date, they have not. The only involvement the sheriff had was the same email that we received on March 6th. Now, before a court can find extraordinary circumstances allowing placement outside Placer County, the county of domicile Placer has to demonstrate to the court that they have engaged in exhausting housing search with meaningful and robust participation from the listed participants, which we would be under the new law. The county of domicile shall provide the court declarations from the county of domicile, Placer, and all participants attesting to that, and then they have to give it to the county of proposed placements. In addition, they have to have what they call the community connection documents showing that Mr. Stephenson has any connection to Amador County. Does he have next of kin here? Has he lived here before? Has he been employed here before? They don't have to do that under the old law, and they haven't provided it thus far, and that's the documents that we're fighting to get tomorrow. And then lastly, we're to receive notice and an opportunity to be heard, which, again, that hearing for Friday has been vacated. It's set at some time to be determined in the future. Cost of housing within the county of domicile is not grounds for housing a person outside the county of domicile. So because it costs a lot of money to house him somewhere is not a justification to find extraordinary circumstances to him somewhere else. Now, what's happened thus far? Placer County petitioned the Placer County Superior Court that extraordinary circumstances exist and it requires placement outside of Placer County. On 9/7/22, the Placer Court authorized Liberty Healthcare to search the greater Sacramento area, which I said. The Amador DA's office received this notice that they were 1 out of 5 of alternative placement counties in a letter dated 9/29/22. No other information other than his name. Then it was radio silence. No information, no invitations to status conferences or meetings, which the new law would mandate that we be invited to, nothing. Unbeknownst to us, on December 5th of 2022, Placer Superior Court found extraordinary circumstances justifying a search for housing for the sexually violent predator, Mr. Stephenson, in Amador County. The law was signed into law by Governor Newsom on 9/30/22, Senate Bill 1034, Atkins. As I said, provide more transparency, more information. It didn't take effect until January 1st. So Placer County had been, and to date still is, operating under the old law that keeps us in the dark. Sheriff Redmond and I sent the letter. I requested documents. We're going to talk tomorrow about that. I sent emails to the Placer County Sheriff, Placer County DA, the representatives for Liberty Healthcare. I left them voicemails asking for new information, anything that they could give me. I did speak with the ConRep program director, Dr. Babcock. She works for Liberty Healthcare, which is a vendor that is assigned to take care of the SVP program by the Department of State Hospitals. I specifically asked her for the criteria or procedures for placement of a sexually violent predator, specifically within a certain distance of a approved school bus stop. She said they have no such criteria. They follow the law, which says that the law 1/4 mile from a private or public school or park. That's it. So school bus stop in and of itself does not thwart a proposed placement, but it is a factor that they can consider. Then late Friday, the sheriff's office was notified. They sent it on to me. I was notified that the hearing is going to be vacated. It is not yet, but tomorrow the hearing that Judge Horst has set to make the final determination that Amador County is going to be vacated and set for another date. So who's William Stephenson? He's 66 years old. He was convicted of a misdemeanor indecent exposure in 1985 and felony sexual battery and indecent exposure in 1986. All these offenses occurred in Sacramento. He was convicted in 1991 in El Dorado County of assault to commit rape, forcible sexual penetration, and forcible oral copulation, all offenses committed while using a weapon. He was sentenced to 31 years in state prison. He was committed to DSH as a sexually violent predator in 2009. And at some point, it appears that he was conditionally placed in Placer County. So he was released from DSH thinking that they believed he was no longer a danger to the public of committing a sexually violent act, released back into the community. And in 2017, his home in Placer County was searched, and child pornography was found in his electronic devices. He was charged by the Placer County District Attorney's Office, but the charges were dismissed, and apparently he was sent back to DSH, where he remains to this date in custody for the time being. The county of commitment, El Dorado County. County of domicile, Placer County. The county of proposed placement, Amador County. The date of placement to be determined by Judge Horse in Placer County. So what can be done? Much of it we're doing now, such as what we're doing tonight, informing the public, mounting vigorous opposition to the proposed placement, including a letter writing campaign, which I strongly encourage you to do if you haven't done. If you're an elected official and school official, whatever your title, that means a lot. These letters can be written to the Placer County Superior Court, letting the judge know that Amador County is concerned and the reasons that you're concerned. Making legal objections to the proposed placement, such as failure to comply with the new law, specifically Welfare Institution Code Section 6608.6, proposing Stephenson's placement near an approved school bus stop that is literally at the foot of the driveway of Mr. Stephenson's proposed placement in a remote area with long 911 response times, limited law enforcement resources, limited behavioral health resources, spotty cell and GPS service. I spoke to behavioral health today. They have not been contacted. They do not have the counseling services to provide for Mr. Stephenson if he was released into our community. Presumably, they would be provided by Liberty Health because our county doesn't have the resources to provide them. Gaining access to information that we're entitled to under the new law so we can be informed adequately in the event that future hearings regarding the potential placement in Amador County are necessary. Advocating for a change in this faulty law, such as SB 832 Jones, which is supported by our very own Senator Alvarado Gil, and I'll let her discuss that. Advocating for a law that removes the appearance of a bias or actual bias, right, by removing the incentive for the elected officials that are involved in the process for finding extraordinary circumstances. Specifically, I'm talking about the sheriff, the DA, and the judge. They're all elected officials. They have to answer their constituents. The judge is the final arbiter that makes the decision whether or not extraordinary circumstances exist, justifying placement outside of that county and in another county, or not. I'm not saying that they didn't do their job. I'm not saying that they're fine, upstanding elected officials or anything like that. What I am saying is that the law is faulty and it has a built-in inherent bias, and that bias should be removed. And the law should be written in such a way, in my opinion, that the county of domicile shall be the placement of a sexually violent predator. And then let the counties duke it out as to who's the real county of domicile. That's the way it ought to be, in my opinion. Other options. Santa Cruz found a unique one. This is a 2023 case. You're going to like this. The sexually violent predator was convicted of, I think his name is Creed, of kidnapping, rape, and forcible oral copulation in 1980. He escaped prison. He raped a 15-year-old and was convicted of rape and furnishing a controlled substance to a minor. In 2019, DSH deemed the sexually violent predator appropriate for conditional release and identified a placement site in Santa Cruz. The staff responsible for supervising SVP, Mr. Creed, Liberty Healthcare, would be 65 miles away from the proposed placement. The residents said the proposed site had no cellular service. It was near hiking trails and near a bus stop, sound familiar, that was used by school children. The DA then provided 3 weeks after the notice of proposed placement in their county, a declaration from a private school operating out of a home less than a quarter mile from the proposed site. The school began operating weeks after the notice was sent by DSH. It consisted of 2 teachers. They were the parents of the students, 4 full-time students, 6 part-time students. the judge said, you just set that school up in that area because you wanted to thwart the proposed placement, didn't you? Yeah, pretty much. And it went up to the appellate court, and the appellate court said, there's nothing in the law that says about the timing of when the school was established, only that the placement of an SVP cannot be within a quarter mile of a public or private school, period. And that remains the law today. So they were able to scuttle that placement in their area. Also, interestingly enough and ironically enough, People versus Superior Court of Placer County, Carsai, parentheses, it's a 2013 case. Santa Barbara wanted to place a sexually violent predator in Placer County. Placer County traveled down to the Santa Barbara court and asked the court that, Santa Barbara being the county of domicile, that if you don't have a place in your county to release him, you must release him as a transient if you can't find suitable housing for him, because it's against his constitutional rights. You're depriving him of his freedom. That went up to the Court of Appeal, who agreed, and the sexually violent predator in that case was released as a transient, or my guess is that Santa Barbara miraculously found a suitable place to place him within their county. Interestingly enough, going back to that other case that was in Santa Cruz, the judge found they could not release Mr. Creed as a transient. The public defender who was appointed to Mr. Creed advocated that he be released as a transient, but the court said he was too dangerous. And then lastly, and this does not help in our situation, but it does help for 290 sexual registrants under the law. If you have been convicted of a registered sex offense under Penal Code Section 290, you have to register with the sheriff or the police chief in a jurisdiction if you live within their jurisdiction annually, I believe, of where your address is. We could pass a municipal ordinance under Penal Code Section 3003.5C that would prohibit parolees, while they're on parole, who are also 290 registrants, from residing within a certain distance of a school, park, or bus stop. It's just a proactive measure that we could take in our community to do in the future. It does not help with Mr. Stephenson, because Mr. Stephenson's not a parolee from CDCR. He is coming from the DSH. And with that, thank you.
So I think I'll follow. Thank you. Thank you, Todd. So my name is Marie Alvarado Gill, and I serve as your state senator. I live here in Jackson, and I cover Senate District 4, which includes 13 counties, ranging from Nevada County down to Inyo County, the greater eastern side of California, the Sierra foothills, and some of the most beautiful landscapes, friendly towns and communities that still preserve the traditions and hospitality and history of California. Now, with this situation, we also know that we become dumping grounds. And I want to talk a little bit about that. But before I go into that, I want to tell you just how incredibly proud I am of these men that are sitting here with me today. They truly, yes, they truly embody the spirit and the love that is Amador County. And to be able to sit here beside them and partner with them on this very critical issue is such an honor for me. So I was sworn in December 5th to serve our wonderful community. I live here in Jackson and represent Jackson with honor. What was most compelling to me to serve in this role was the fact that California legislators were moving in a direction of broken families, of broken communities, and allowing criminals to have more rights than victims. And that simply, for me, was not okay. Not as a mother, not as a grandmother, not as a member of my community. So I sit here today knowing that the state has failed us in this situation. This is a predator that is under the care of the state, the Department of State Hospitals, and we have thwarted our responsibilities to care for some of the most heinous criminals, that have been predators of our children, of our women, of some of our most vulnerable communities. And so when I found out about this from our sheriff and our district attorney, I worked with my team right away and said, what can we do about this? And so on March 8th, I met with the director of state hospitals and the medical director to ask those very specific questions. Who is Mr. Stephenson and why Amador County? Now you can imagine the answers to those questions really didn't connect with me. They didn't land in a way that I felt that it was sincere or even took into consideration our community. And when I asked specifically, how was this house selected, I was told we had a surveyor come out and do measurements. Measurements. That to me was astonishing. Not talking to our residents, not meeting with our residents, not observing the traffic of our children that go to and from school, but taking measurements. So I shared that disappointment in our State Department, and I asked what the relationship was with Liberty Health. Because when we spend tax dollars to protect the community, I want to ensure that we're not putting those same predators back into the community. So I found out that Liberty Health is a third-party contractor, a private entity that contracts with the state to oversee the treatment of some of the most heinous criminals, the sexually violent predators. They also have the sole ability to make decisions on whether or not that person should be released into the community. And they also have the power, not the elected power, not the appointed power, not the community power, to make decisions around where their recommendation for placement is. Now, I have never spoken with anyone from Liberty Healthcare, even though we have reached out to them. So I looked into the agreement that we have with Liberty Health, and in 10 years, they have not had an oversight hearing with the state. That, to me, is egregious disrespect, not only to taxpayers, but to our community. So I sit here in front of you asking for forgiveness as a state legislator, but not passing the buck, saying that I'm going to use my authority as the chair of human services that controls the purse strings to a lot of our programs here in California and partner with our chair of health services to ensure that this does not happen again. Now, last year, the state Senate did pass successfully a new bill, and our district attorney spoke about that. And unfortunately, this person, Mr. Stephenson, is being evaluated under the old law. Well, if we voted as state lawmakers to close those loopholes and protect our community, and it was signed by our governor, shouldn't that be the law of today that we operate? So that's been our argument. The other thing that I'm looking at is the millions of dollars that's been given to Liberty Healthcare. The millions of dollars that don't go to our community, to our kids, to our schools, to our cities and our counties, to repair our roads, to build our infrastructure in our schools, our hospitals. For approximately 20 sexually violent predators a year that are treated under this program. I was astonished when I saw the numbers. And under my leadership, this will not continue. So for me, it is an honor to be here in front of you. I am also working with the minority leader, Brian Jones, in the state Senate to close other loopholes for sexually violent predators. Senate Bill 832, which still has not been heard in committee, but is making its debut here in August for Sexual Assault Awareness Month, makes the highest criteria for any potential placement of a sexually violent predator to be that of public safety. That means putting public safety first, not above criminals, for the people. It would require that the Department of State Hospitals take the ownership of placement and approve a process before any vendor can sign any leases for placement locations. That would hold the state accountable for the decisions made. It would mandate the director of the Department of State Hospitals to publicly report annually how many sexually violent predators are in each county and in which supervisorial district. It would require the Department of State Hospitals and the Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation and the Department of Forestry and Fire Protection to assess all land under their control and report to the governor and the legislature any inventory of facilities, state facilities, that could be used to house SVPs as previous administrations have done historically here in California. That was before we were putting the rights of criminals above victims. This would also prevent an SVP from being placed within 5 miles of a federally recognized Indian tribal land. Now, in talking with our district attorney today and talking with our sheriff, they reminded me that this new bill that Senator Jones and I are proposing does not delineate school bus stops. And right now, we are at the point where we can make those amendments. And that is why it's so important that you are here today and that we're here to hear from you, because we are making the laws right now. We are assigning those budgets, those tax dollars to protect our communities and to help us thrive here in California. But unless we do our jobs, we are not going to be able to give our sheriff and our district attorney the tools they need, not only to put people away, but to keep them away. So thank you for being here today.
And to follow up on what these three have already said, I'm Mark Benini. I'm the Chief Probation Officer, and I've been with the County Department for a little over 27 years and have been the chief for just over 15 years. And as I hear what's gone on, I'm just astounded by it, that I can't believe it. There's no way that we could run our department and what we do and how we do in this manner that is being described with this offender's release. And really why I'm here is just to give you an idea what typically would happen under standard releases from the California Department of Corrections that come to us upon that offender's release and their completion of their commitment at the state level. And it really runs down like this. It's very simple. Usually we get a packet within 6 months of their release describing, the offender, everything in their history, photos, criminal history, probation reports, everything that goes along with that prior to their commitment. We also get documentation as to how they're doing within the institution, what they've done, what certificates, what programs they've completed, things of that nature to somewhat give us a complete picture of where we are at with this offender and what we can expect come that 6-month release point. My officers then do a virtual contact with the offender. One of the positive things that came out of all of the coronavirus restrictions and things that occurred was CDCR, counties, and everyone really getting on board with doing those virtual meetings. And those are valuable to have a peace officer in front of that offender, whether it's a screen or not, but doing that evaluation and seeing how they react and what's going on. So we do all of those things, again, prior to their release. We do sometimes at that point an assessment of needs of the offender, and then we begin to make local referrals for services because there's gaps in what they may need once they are released. So we try to start hooking them up with different things locally as much as we can while they're still on the inside. Many times, before that offender's release, we're doing a home visit to the proposed residents, and we're confirming, because believe it or not, the California Department of Corrections can make mistakes. So we're confirming that where the residence is, that we are indeed either the county of commitment or the county of residence. There are some exceptions to those rules when that offender returns to our county, that they can be sent to a different county. Many times it's a bona fide employment offer, that's an exception. So if they have an employment offer someplace else in another county, we will allow that transfer. But I want to reiterate that if they are transferred, they're then transferred to another probation department that peace officers that are still supervising them. In this case, there's no tail on this offender other than Liberty Health. So another exception is victim requests it. So if our offender commits an offense here in Amador County, is committed to state prison, and a victim can request that offender not be paroled or released to PRCS probation here in Amador County, and then they would be sent to another county. So there's some exceptions to those rules, but we don't run into those very often. And then ultimately, when that offender is released, they're given 2 days to get to us to report. Sometimes if it occurs on a weekend, that's kicked over a day or two, but nonetheless, they've got to get to us to report. We do an in-person assessment of their need and their risk, And then we begin to do case management services with them that include referring to local programs, checking in with family and other services and systems that they may already have in place, and trying to reconnect all of those dots, thereby trying to ensure that we at least have a semblance of public safety when it comes to offenders that are going to be released back into our communities. I did hear someone mention on the panel here about GPS services. We know where those holes are because we utilize GPS services as well with offenders. We know where those holes are in the county. Do you think Liberty Health might know where those holes are for an offender that, you know, they put a GPS? They don't. We have ways to defeat some of those holes, and again, you've got peace officers going out, visiting these folks and making sure they're, as much as we can, making sure they're doing what they need to do, and offering case management services throughout the term that we have jurisdiction on those cases. And it could be anywhere from 1 to 5 years. That just isn't happening in this case. And to be quite honest with all you, that's scary. It really is.
Thank you, everybody. So as you can see, and that's one reason why I wanted Chief Benini involved. One, he really is one of the leaders as far as it comes to law enforcement and that oversight. Everything and all the offenders that come through the jail at some point come through probation. And you just heard how extensive risk assessment and what takes place. And like I said before, it was evidently clear, and I'll use this word again, is completely negligent by Liberty Health and their risk assessment, which was absolutely nothing. I firmly believe they thought, okay, Amador County, small county, we're just gonna fly this under the radar. Guess what, folks? Not on my watch, not happening. So with that, I want to remind everybody that I think we all are in agreement. We don't want this, but we definitely want to hear your concerns, your issues, your questions. That is why we are here tonight. So I will open it to the public, and then from there, once the public has had their turn, we do have a Zoom link, and we will go to any people that are on Zoom. Just raise your hand, and Sergeant Ham will let me know that people are on Zoom. So with that I will open it to the public. Yeah, just come on up and step up to the mic. If you can just give us your name and city, please.
My name is Richard Lockwood. I live in Pioneer. I'm the retired police chief of Jackson, California. And I believe I'm eminently qualified to be worried about not just this individual, but everyone else. One of my questions tonight was going to be, what are the qualifications for Liberty Health? And I'm woefully afraid we just had an answer. What their expertise is tells me a lot if they're measuring in the neighborhood where this gentleman, if that's the right word, is going to reside. I'm also all too familiar with repeat offenders. And it's one thing to put the bad guy in jail the first time, or girl the first time, but it's another thing to see them repeat and then think, what did we do not enough of? What did we miss? This person has already shown the propensity to repeat offend. And I don't know if folks that are representing the property in question are here tonight, but I have a message for that person. If that is a contract that you have with Liberty Health and it can be rescinded, please do so. I don't care if you're having a neighborhood dispute and you're sticking it to the neighbor, but you're doing this and you're sticking it to this entire county. This guy is going to go shopping in our county. He's going to take public transportation and or drive on the streets, perhaps drink at night. We don't need it. And I'd like to compliment each and every one of you for the work you've already done, and I know what's ahead of you. Good luck.
Thank you. And I believe the senator did answer your question on how woefully inadequate the qualifications of Liberty Health, and I discovered that within the first 5 minutes of doing the risk assessment. Sir.
Hi, my name is Justin Nowak, and I live in Sutter Creek. Specifically, I'm adjacent property to the house that's in question. I am a direct neighbor. And many of you may be aware of what I'm going to mention here, but I think most of the citizens in this room are unaware of the conditions of that home. My property, like I said, is adjacent to this one, which backs up to, I believe, somewhere between 1,000 and 1,700 acres of open, unused BLM, which is completely landlocked by private properties, but there are a few public access roads which are pretty well hidden. But I'm well aware of those hundreds of acres because I take my family, my nephews, my loved ones, we go out riding on our ATVs, and I know that area pretty well. And that house has a back door, so anyone can stand in front of the house and watch that, oh, he hasn't left the house. But I can see his back door, and he has direct access to that BLM, and he could navigate anywhere from Hale Road down to Stone Jug, down to Dry Creek and Fiddletown, and all the neighbors' properties that back up to it. He could hide in there, no one would ever find him, never. And he could access so many private properties, come and go, no one would know where he's at. And if he's got an ankle bracelet, that doesn't mean anything. He'll circumvent that. So in case you need a little bit more ammunition for what you need to bring up to extraordinary circumstances, that backyard of hundreds or maybe a few thousand acres is just open land for him to disappear into and access other people's properties. And quite frankly, my wife is losing sleep over this because this is way too close to home. And we have grandchildren that would love coming up to our place, and I can be boycotted quickly once my family finds out I've got that poor neighbor. Thank
Sir,
you.
do people hike that property, the BLM property?
I have seen hikers, motorcyclists, ATVs. Like I said, I have a couple ATVs myself, and I have a gate that accesses it. So does that same property. There's a gate that accesses the BLM properties, and I have seen public out there.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that is an issue we did identify, was the BLM property. I know Karen and I spoke about that, so that's definitely on our radar. Thank you, sir.
I'm Jim Whitaker from Pine Grove. I'm also the District Board Representative of the Amador County Unified School District and Amador County Office of Education. Today, the Superintendent, Tori Gibson, who's at another meeting and hopefully will be here soon, sent a letter stating our opposition to this person, much like I have opposition to this person. And Senator, you mentioned the fact that you have the time to change your proposed bill for that. I really think that bus stops should be included because of the fact that, you know, it's just one of those small things that we can use to protect our children. And I also heard Mr. Reeby talk about the gentleman in Santa Cruz right there, and it was 65 miles for Liberty to come out there. Where's Liberty based around here? Where are they coming from? That's another question, some ammunition possibly that we can use. You know, do we have that? Because after working in this county on the ambulance for 25 years, in addition to teaching and everything, I'm well aware of the travel time is code 3, and that's a ways out there. And like we've all heard, the GPS, the cell phone service is questionable when you get up into the hills. So those are some of our concerns, and the school district was never contacted, the superintendent or the transportation department, about this person coming to an area where their bus stop is right there, dropping kids off literally at his doorstep. And that's not good. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. And you're absolutely correct, Jim, is the school district was never contacted. In fact, when we identified the bus stop and told Liberty about the bus stop, their answer was, we're not allowed to ask that information. Our answer was BS. They also tried to claim HIPAA when they said the homeowners of the adjacent properties were not spoken to. I'm sorry, but being a sexual violent predator is not a disease. HIPAA does not apply. Yes, ma'am.
I just want to publicly thank the sheriff for the really bang-up job they did on pressing, I think, one of our two best issues, which is the proximity of the school bus stop. We know how many feet it is. We know how many children are involved. We know how many school bus stops are in that quarter-mile area. We know all that we need to know to be able to make an effective argument, I think. If we can get that in the law, that will even be better.
Yeah.
I think our other argument is that they haven't followed the procedures that they need to follow under the new law. So hopefully, we can get both of those in our favor and see where we go.
Yes, ma'am.
I choose not to give my name.
Okay.
I live in Pioneer. I am a survivor. It seems that the judicial system doesn't protect us like it should. You're offering absolutely wonderful information and what we need to do. It's to the point that a lot of us are angry, we're sick and tired of knowing criminals have more rights than we do. And you're offering these wonderful things to offer and get elected and all, but it always seems, they always say no. And we shouldn't have to live overprotecting our children. We have the right to protect our loved ones. Even though, yes, there's no GPS, still service. That could be answered with cell towers. That's something to consider. The other thing to consider is it kills our peace of mind. One said already, someone's losing sleep. When you start losing sleep, everything goes chaotic. And that's one thing we do not need. We do not need this person in our area. Matter of fact, nowhere. There needs to be a law to protect us. We need a law to say, no, they need to be kept in. When they do the first offense, they get a slap on the hand. Second offense, seems like another slap on the hand. It's going to happen again. And that's what scares me. And we're losing sleep, our peace of mind. And we deserve, that peace of mind. We work extremely hard. We have retired folks that have children and grandchildren. And they want them to come over and play, have a good time. How can you do that when you have no peace of mind? Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
My name, excuse me, is Kelly Albertson. I live in Volcano. And there's all kinds of places you can house these people. Naval Air Station in Alameda, Vallejo, Mare Island, Naval Weapons Station. I know I'm down there a lot. There's a lot of empty houses there. Mather, all these. Why can't they keep them on the bases? And there is security there. They'll be watched a little bit more. And there's no kids there because they're closed. And that would be a good place to keep these people, but no one ever thinks of that. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Hello, my name's Diane Bennett. I'm a resident of Fiddletown and a 48-year resident of Amador County. Something you said earlier, Todd, I want to double check. You said they cannot be within a quarter mile of a school, public or private, and a park, public or private?
I believe it's, let me see, I think I have that in here somewhere. I can get back with you on that, but I believe parks are included, but I can't tell you if it's public or private.
Okay, check with that, because I just volunteered my husband to help start on the park of the neighbor that has 9 acres. I mean, if they're gonna look for loopholes, I'm sure we can buy, I haven't told him yet, but he'll go with it. I am sure we can find enough people in this county to put play structure in for the gentleman with the grandchildren, and he has 9 acres, and him and I just talked while I stood in this line. I am a person who looks for solutions too. To the woman that stood up here that talked about being a survivor, I applaud you. The rates of recidivism for a person like this, 26.3% and 38.1% for violent crime, rearrest, and 52.6% and 77.7% for any arrest length. The 1 and 5 year recidivism rates found by the researchers were respectively 3.9% and 10.8% for a sex crime rearrest, 26.3% and 38.1% for a violent crime rearrest, and 52.6% and 77.7% for any arrest. The odds are, and we all know it, this person is going to reoffend. We do not want him in our county. Our children deserve better. Our neighbors deserve better. Because whether it's a child or whether it's an adult, it's one of us. So thank you all for doing everything you can. And if you get back to us and it is public or private park, we'll start working on that park right away.
I think I was speaking to Penal Code Section 3003.5, which says that if you're a 290 registrant, you cannot reside within 2,000 feet of any public or private school or park where children regularly gather. I believe the SVP is 1/4 mile from a public or private school.
Okay.
So if you were thinking about a school,
And I am a school teacher, so I may just start volunteering my time for a homeschool.
yeah,
Hello, my name is Clayton Peck, and I have been here in Amador County since 1989. I came here tonight hoping for some understanding, and I got more anger. Whew, I am angry right now. And some of it is because of what I don't know. You had mentioned, Senator, that they weren't directed, they weren't voted on or anything else. Like, how did Liberty get the authority? Somebody signed off on it. Something signed off on it. I need to find out who that someone or something is. Yeah.
It's a contract, so the state puts out to bid for third-party contractors, and Liberty Health won that contract, and they've been holding the contract for 20 years.
And they're held to parameters for which they need to.
Yeah, I have not seen the contract. My experience tells me it is highly outdated,
Yeah.
and that it has been one of those rubber stamp contracts, if you will. And that's why I am putting my commitment here, not only for Amador County, but for the 13 counties I represent and all Californians, to ensure that anything in this contract that does not pass the muster, I will find it and I will expose it and ensure that any third-party contracts that we have in California, that we entrust others to take care of our most heinous criminals, are of the utmost professional and have direct communication with the ones that we trust, our sheriffs, our district attorneys, our police forces.
And are also up for public review when
Correct.
those things happen.
Yes, there has not been a public review of that organization or that company for 10 years.
It boggles my mind to think that something can go on for 20 years with no oversight, somebody's doing it or not doing it. Somebody is supposed to be doing it, and they're obviously not doing it. That's why I'm angry right now. I'm grateful to live in a county that has people like you. I am grateful to live in a county that I have a sheriff that told me straight out, I want everybody who's able to have their CCW. I want everybody who is entitled to have their CCW. That doesn't mean we're gonna go hunting. That doesn't mean we're gonna go hunting. That means we're gonna protect the ones we love. And if anybody behind me can hear me, go get your CCW. I'm planning on it.
Good evening. My name is Richard Gierak. I live in Sutter Creek, about 3 miles from the proposed location. And Sheriff Redmond, you'd mentioned earlier that we could write letters. And from what I read in the newspaper article where we published the letter from the court from Placer County, it seemed that the only place to submit feedback was to the ConRep email. And we've written to that ConRep email address, our family members have. Where else can we write letters? Do we write to you? Do we write to our senator? Where else can we help to, pile up the disagreement of let's not place this guy here?
So the way the procedure is through ConRep. They're the ones that we have to navigate through. Our letters also went to the judge that is hearing this case. But really, at that point, that's all we can do. And make the loudest noise we can possibly make, which we are all doing tonight, and I'm so thankful for.
Okay, so just keep writing to ConRep.
Absolutely.
Okay, and thank you all for your service. Appreciate it.
You can also CC our office so that we know that those letters are going in as well.
Yeah. Is there an email address for the sheriff's office that we can CC, and for your office, Senator, that we, or in district attorney's office, that we can copy on our emails to ConRep so that we know that somebody got our letters and not just ConRep who may not have an interest in displaying them?
Yes, through our website, Sergeant Ham, is Amador Sheriff.
Yeah, if you want to send an email, actually, probably just send it directly to me. That'd be the easiest. So mham@amadorgov.org.
mham@amadorgov.org.
Yeah, all of our emails at the sheriff's office is our first initial, last name, so gredmond@amadorgov.org, or let's give it to Mark Ham at amadorgov.org.
Okay, great. Thank you all.
And at the state level, we register every single correspondence that comes to our office, and those numbers matter. So please see my district director. She'll give you our contact information, and we are here at your disposal. So please send those to us as well.
Great. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Cody Kane. I live here in Jackson. Thank you for having this meeting tonight. Now, as the gentleman said, where they're proposing putting this guy, there's a lot of land out there. And it's pretty obvious none of us want him here. Have they, the people, Liberty Health, that's wanting to put him here, have they considered his safety? Because there's a lot of people out there, very rural, that, like you said, there's not a lot of cell phone service. There's a lot of people out there that are just gonna say, you know what, 911 didn't help last time. I'm not gonna call this time.
And honestly, that's a legitimate question. They didn't consider our safety. I guarantee they have not considered his safety.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pat Thomas. I live in Ione. I'm retired from the Department of Corrections. And I'm kind of probably a little more experienced than anyone else in here in the fact that I retired as a chief of the Sexual Violent Predator Unit and Mentally Developed Offenders Unit, the MDOs. For 2 years, that was my last assignment. I would review 600 to 800 cases, SVP cases a month, every month. And we were talking about the lady over here, there's a teacher, was talking about the recidivism rate, and that's with SVPs. Of the SVPs, only a handful get viewed by the psychiatrist and when they both agree and make it to the state hospitals. The ones that come out of state hospitals, if they ever do come out, because they're that broken, they reoffend almost 100%. And that's speaking from someone who ran that department for 2 years. So I think it's a systemic issue. When the SVP comes out of a state prison, they go under parole. And so we have parole officers, parole agents that monitor them closely. When they come out of state hospitals, they're a patient, so the Department of Corrections doesn't monitor them. And I think that's a systemic issue that needs to be examined a whole lot further, and that's, I think, where we need to pour all our energy into. Because contracting to somebody because the state can afford, and that's why they're doing it, because it's a budget issue, and the safety of the people of this county and the state of California, it shouldn't fall on a budget issue when those people are extremely dangerous. After this meeting, I'll get with you, I'll tell you about the person that, the last SVP that I remember, a serious case in Santa Cruz. You guys know the results of that one? First day, second day out, stabbed a young lady 2 miles from her store at lunchtime, broad daylight, stabbed her to death. And I had him at Preston when he was a youth, and he did it when he was an adult. So I think it's something that's we need to look at, Senator needs to look at, the state of California needs to look at, that they need to find a way other than contracting for someone that's that dangerous to put them into our community or anybody else's community. And there's not many of them that get out. And when they do get out, that's, if you look at his record, I looked it up, he reoffends all the time. His whole life he's reoffended. So his chances of reoffending are extremely high. So, you know, I'll give you guys, I know Todd, I'll give you guys my number if you want to get a hold of me. I can get a whole lot of information from the department I used to work for and give you a little bit of leverage if you need it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ma'am, just before you speak, if I could, Diane, you asked a question about the parks. I know I saw it, and I'm looking through the documentation that we received from Liberty Health, and it says, SVP Conrep screens housing sites pursuant to the court's orders and the individual patient's current needs and risk factors as identified by the state hospital and Conrep. Housing assignments consider Jessica Law's compliance, which is found in Penal Code Section 3003.5, the Sexually Violent Predators Act, residency restrictions, which are found in Welfare Institutions Code Section 6608.5, including proximity to schools and parks where children regularly gather. I think parks are back on the table.
My name is Paula Bibby, and I'm from Sutter Creek, and I live within a quarter mile of this address. And I would just like to know why Placer County was deemed unacceptable by the judge.
That is the same question we have been asking, and they have refused to give us that answer.
So it's not in
Because
the
it
court
really
documents?
it really stems off of, there was a court order. They had to present factual evidence to the court for the court to make that decision. And we have yet to receive that. Our hope is that we will receive that tomorrow. The request has been by the district attorney to get that information. Because I believe a lot of this stems on that exact answer.
Okay, because I feel that our reasons for not having him are the same reasons they said he wasn't acceptable there. So I don't understand why.
Well, for them, it was a housing issue. It wasn't that their
Oh,
county.
so it was expensive? Is that what I heard? Okay,
Cost can't be a factor.
right.
It doesn't justify extraordinary circumstances.
So why would the judge rule that way then?
Again, under the old law, they don't have to share their process with us. They didn't have to give us the declarations of the people involved saying, hey, look, we've exhausted our search for suitable housing and there is none in our county, let's go outside. They don't have to share that with us. The judge is going to share that with us. How much documents how many that we receive, I've asked for a lot. I'll find out hopefully tomorrow.
Okay, because that seems to be, why is he unacceptable there? Why did they have to move him? And why, and I want to know, how'd they find this house? How did they find this particular house?
She probably had it for lease, and they offer a lot of money. I know this. I spoke to the former Yuba County District Attorney, and he said they throw an obnoxious amount of money on a monthly lease, much more than the market rate, to entice people to lease to sexually violent predators.
Seriously? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
You have more information than I have, but in Yuba County, I believe it was 4,000 for a shack.
Wow. So, and then my next question is, what's the fiscal impact on the county?
Yet to be determined, because, we have about zero involvement when it comes to monitoring this person. Yet, I can guarantee if this does come to fruition, which I'm hoping it does not, we will have a tremendous amount of involvement between these three agencies up here.
Okay.
So there will be a fiscal impact.
And just for everybody else, you don't need a CCW to defend your house and your person at your home, so, okay.
Jim Swift, Sutter Creek. Thank you for having this forum. We really appreciate it. Sheriff Redmond, I heard you say that he had a 31-year sentence, and was that correct?
So the original sentence was 31 years. Yes.
And when did that start? I didn't catch the date.
Well,
When that was conviction was, and sentence was handed down.
2009, he went to DSH in December 2009. So 6 months prior to his release from CDCR. So of his 31 years, he served 18 of it before they sent him to DSH because they believed he needed to be evaluated as to whether or not he met the definition of a sexually violent predator, which he did. So he stayed at DSH until he was released conditionally to his county of domicile, Placer County. He reoffended, although he wasn't convicted, and they sent him back to DSH, which is where he sits now.
Well, I would like to ask the senator to, of course, we're dealing right now with this particular situation, but the long-term solution is to keep these people behind bars. And we'd appreciate any efforts that you can do to persuade your fellow legislators to make that happen.
Yes, it's an uphill battle, and I'll say Proposition 57 really hindered our ability to put these criminals behind bars.
Well, we had a prison overpopulation problem, and so the solution was we just
Let them all out. Yeah, that was not a solution in my book. So it makes our jobs a lot harder, so.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Hi, I'm Jan Hewitt. I live in Volcano, and I'm involved with the Lockwood Fire Protection District. I have a technical question. What constitute extraordinary circumstances? Is it defined anywhere in the DSH documentation? And if not, I think it should be, and maybe, be part of your legislative activity.
It's defined under the law, and what extraordinary circumstances mean are circumstances that would inordinately limit DSH's ability to effect conditional release in the county of domicile. So it's wide open as a Mack truck. Inordinate circumstances, circumstances that would inordinately limit DSH's ability to effect conditional release in the county of domicile. That's it.
That seems so vague in general. I mean,
It
it
does.
could be housing, or it could be other things.
Exactly, and that's why we need the information, because that puts flesh on the bones. And giving me a minute order is nothing. That's just bones of a hearing, and it doesn't tell you what was discussed or include any documents.
Yeah, well, I think the definition should be more precise. So, in terms of future legislation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, my name is Steve Cannon. I'm a resident of Volcano. And some folks were asking about who to contact. So I went online, and not all that tech savvy, but I'm able to do some things. So if you go to dsh.ca.gov, you find out that the director's name is Stephanie Clendenin. So I would write, and I'm going to write, a letter to Ms. Clendenin about this situation. And the actual physical address, which I always love because, I think emails probably get trashed. Well, of course, so do U.S. mail letters too. But the address of the DHS is 12150 O Street, Sacramento, 95814. So go on dsh.ca.gov probation.ca.gov, and you can find out where to send your letter. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Glennis Carrera, and I live in Pine Grove, just above Clark Field. So there's kids down there all the time. I want to thank everybody that has spoken tonight. What they've said quite well, and so was the information I received. I don't have much else to say other than the two things that are sitting in the back of this room. That's why I'm here tonight. And I think that's why we're all here. And I don't know if we'll get a solution now. I liked alternative housing. If we could build tiny little houses for the homeless, why can't we build them for these predators out in the Mojave Desert? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Allison Sanders. I literally live right over the fence from where this person is going to be located. I have 3 children from the ages of 15 to 9. I have a swimming pool. I have a horse arena that is literally eye shot of this person's house. I'm terrified. I am scared to death. I can't sleep. I have anxiety. Every time I hear something in my house, I wake up because I'm scared to death. I had to get a dog that I'm going to start training to protect me and my family. I am going to get my license for a gun to protect my family. And I'm terrified. And I have a question. How is he supposed to get food? Like, is he going to have people bringing food to him, or is he going to be out in public?
Conrep is responsible, which is Liberty Healthcare, for providing the services for him. Whether or not they bring him the food, or whether or not they allow him to get out, or whether or not he's comfortable going out, I don't know the answer to that. And we may not know the answer, and hopefully we never get to the point where we have to go to a safety plan, because at that point, they've already determined they're going to release him to Amador County. And then our fallback is, if you're going to do that, we got to make sure that we have 24-hour surveillance of him, and that we can ensure, which is payable, they have to provide that, Liberty Healthcare. And that's where the sheriff comes in, that's where chief of police comes in, and where I come in to make sure that if we ever get there, and hopefully we don't, that this community is as safe as it possibly can be, since they have chosen this, or they're looking at this county for this placement.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Marcia Urenda, and my property abuts this intended property. And I didn't want to be on TV all the time, and I didn't want any of this stuff to happen. I have a 10-year-old granddaughter that would like to spend some time with me this summer. But most of all, I just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you so much, and thank all of you. It's heartwarming, and I feel like we got a good chance. And just thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Carla Rust. Thank you for making us all aware that this is going on, because I usually don't watch the posts, and when I do see stuff like this, I usually try to get away from it. I am a victim of a sexually violent predator. In 1987, I was attacked in my own front porch. At the time, I lived in Redwood City, and leaving this city, coming up here, things are everywhere, but you don't expect it to the level that I witnessed, and that this man has proven capable of. I didn't expect this to bring up as many feelings as it has. This is my cousin, who was also a victim of sexual violence. She didn't make it. She was murdered. And she was 17 years old. And this was a repetitive criminal. He had been arrested, I think, 4 or 5 times for his crimes. And I don't know what all we can do other than what you've suggested here, but there has to be some way to keep people that are at this magnitude, this level of violence out of the public system. I have 8 grandkids, and they're always at my house. And the idea that somebody like this could be out, and I don't know if he's going to be released to be, you know, just in his own property area, which is bad enough as it is, being that it's near family and kids. But if he is, and he's able to walk around and we see him, and it's, you know, the PTSD, I guess you would say, from all of this going on, the lack of sleep that a lot of us are having because of, you know, knowing what he's done and what could possibly happen here. I know they're going to place him somewhere, and I don't wish this on anybody's community, but we don't want it here. And thank you for doing what you're doing to keep that from. I'm just curious, is homeschool a part of school curriculum in this? And if there was a way to find out if this family where he's being located or possibly located is a homeschooling family, or if there are others in that general area, that would be really, you know, something I'd be interested in, because we are a homeschooling family. And I just really want to make sure everybody's safe.
In Santa Cruz, it was located in a home.
Yeah.
And 2 of the parents that were affected were the teachers. I presume the students were, at least some of them were their children.
Thank you again for all you do, and thanks for sticking up for us. And is there any way for us to know, after you go to court, what the outcome of that was? Will that be made public to us?
I can make that public. I can put that on our website. We have a Facebook page.
Okay, and another question. His hearing, or the hearing for this, that the special circumstances, is that public?
No, in fact, I have to pay to get on because it's civil. And then rather than drive there, I want to do it virtual. So I had to pay $27.50 today so I could have the privilege of appearing virtually. But anyway, no, but as soon as I get the results of that, I will share that with the public.
Yeah, we will continue to get out as much information as it changes. I will, you know, both offices will continue to do press releases, which will go to KVGC, which thankfully is here tonight doing a live stream on this. Our local media, Fox 40, 3, everybody.
Now,
So,
one of the things, a lot of us up here, we don't have good service for cable or anything like that, so I don't have TV. I saw this through the Uncensored Amador page. Is it possible to include that page as well?
so they're really good about sharing all of our information. A lot of the people that run those are, they pluck it off of our Facebook or KVGC or the Ledger Dispatch, and kind of disseminate that information. Nextdoor is another good one. I try to put as much information as I can on Nextdoor.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Karen Warburton. I live adjacent to the property as well. People have seen me online, they have seen me on television, they've seen me at the board meeting. I'm pretty sure everybody's getting tired of me talking. I am, like my neighbor Marcia, very much out of my comfort zone in doing all of this, but I feel like it's what we have to do. I would like to share some information this evening with our, all the people that are here tonight, related to the Department of State Hospitals and Liberty Healthcare. These are things that I would have brought up to them if they came. One of the things that I have here is a fact sheet about the California Department of Hospitals Sexually Violent Predator Conditional Release Program. And I note that on the third bullet down, they talk about how community safety is their top priority. I don't think I need to say any more about that. Liberty Healthcare on their webpage has a section on sex offender management, which is a service they provide to the state. On here, they say 0.57% rate of new sex crimes within 3 years of release. 0 known new contact sex offenses in the 18-year history of a statewide release program, and a 50% cost reduction of core services for half of clients due to behavioral progress. I think this is all a bunch of BS. I don't even know how they can get away with saying that. Senator Brian Jones, who our senator mentioned, put out a statement on his website, and it reads that East Coast-based Liberty Healthcare sneaks into unsuspecting communities up and down California and employs a disturbing placement strategy known as, quote, hide the predator, in which full details of where they are leasing homes for SVPs are kept secret from neighbors, school officials, and even local law enforcement. So this should not be a surprise to anybody after hearing what you've heard here tonight. I also wanted to bring up some other interesting things that were reported on, mainly in the San Diego area. So there is a publication down there called the Borrego Sun. I hope I said that right. And in that article, they wrote the following, and I quote, "Why do landlords rent to Liberty? The money. This is a problem of out-of-town investors buying property with the intention to rent to Liberty Healthcare specifically for the housing of SVPs. It is unethical, but also very profitable to the landlord and to Liberty Healthcare. A Ranchita resident obtained one of Liberty's contracts, and there were no responsibilities in it for the landlord regarding the tenant. There were some oral comments that were made during an SVP hearing on July 8th, 2022, where someone stated the amount DSH pays Liberty for Conrep services has risen by $34,000 per client on average in the last 2 years. Its newest budget estimate states the department expects that 21 SVPs will be conditionally released in the state at an average cost of $344,000 per client. I don't know where they got their information, but that was what was published. Another publication noted on October 6, 2021, that following the protests from residents, the owners of the Rancho Bernardo house, it was another SVP situation, withdrew their permission to the state on Friday, saying that they could not, quote, in good conscience, consent to the individual being placed at their property. And finally, another publication in the Borrego Sun on June 21st, 2022 says, and there was a lot of talk about recidivism rates, but here, did I say that right? Recidivism. Okay, I always have trouble with that word. It says, when measuring the success or failure of Conrep, consider that 70% of SVPs released into communities in California were returned to custody. 70%. Why? In the words of the Liberty Healthcare representation, Dr. Cameron Zeidler, they were returned for, quote, technical violations or, wait for it, sex not involving a human. I'll leave you with that. I want to thank all of you very, very much for your involvement in this. It's been a huge comfort to me and my neighbors to know that you guys are in charge here and leading us. Please let us know as residents what we can do to help. We're doing everything we can. In terms of the signs, people who have the signs, I asked you to return them to me at the end. Anybody who lives in proximity to the big banner that's out on the street, if you would like to take a sign and put it in front of your house on the street, you are more than welcome to take one. I only have a few, but you know, until I run out.
Good evening. My name is Robin Gingrich. I'm also a resident that would be living near Mr. Stevenson, should he be placed in Amador County. To give you some perspective, he would literally have to go through my property, through our shared driveway to get to the mailbox. To say I have some concerns is really not describing, I mean, the breadth of what I'm thinking and feeling about this circumstance for myself, my family, and my neighbors, and for all of the residents of Amador County. I'm very happy that my neighbor Justin brought up the public land, as hopefully that could be used as additional criteria to justify why this wouldn't be a good placement at all for Mr. Stevenson. I think my frustration in this whole process is one, the first time hearing about this when a representative from the Sheriff's Department came to ask questions about our neighbor that was potentially entering into this agreement with Liberty Healthcare. We were not contacted, certainly. It was a shock and not a good one. I think that what that does is create a lot of anxiety, fear. I do not know how our lives will change ultimately if he is placed next door to us. I think that's one of the biggest questions I have. What can we really expect here? Is he going to be able to walk down my driveway and get his mail? You know, we have horses and we have a garden. We're tending to those, you know, out in the yard a lot. We have no ability to protect our yard from, or even create a perimeter where we're going to be safe from contact with him. I just want to make that very clear. So I guess I want to know, like, what can we do? What choices do we have as homeowners in this situation where we have not so far been given any choices? What is the level of surveillance that we're all going to be a part of now? Who's going to be coming onto our property? What does this process look like for neighbors, I guess? Do any of you know?
If they get to the point where right now we don't have a hearing pending. Tomorrow they're supposed to vacate the hearing that was set for Friday to a date to be determined. I've heard that might be in July, if they come back at all. If they do, and if he is placed in Amador County, and if he is placed in the proposed placement that they've indicated thus far, CONREP is responsible for working with the county of placement to work on a safety plan. And that safety plan would include what kind of supervision that he would need. And I can tell you from the county's perspective, we're going to want 24-hour. And they have to pay for it. Typically, it's retired cops. It's been my understanding, speaking with other DAs who've had a placement of an SVP in their community.
It was my understanding that it was a retired cop that was the representative of Liberty Healthcare that actually came to our neighborhood to evaluate and measure, as was described, and he didn't want to talk to any of us. So I'm not feeling very comfortable with that at all.
And that is correct. He was a retired Stockton officer, contracted by a third party. So he's getting paid to do exactly what they say. And you brought up a lot of concerns and issues that we obviously have. We hear that, and those are some major concerns and issues that we've asked Liberty, and they've really been either unwilling or unable to answer exactly how this procedure is going to take place. Like I said, it doesn't fall within the normal realm of law enforcement, whether it's parole, probation, you heard Chief Benimi talk about the strict regulations that go into place, and I just don't see that happening with Liberty, which is a huge red flag. This whole process is flawed, and I'm so thankful that Senator Alvaredo's here to try, hopefully maybe kind of fix some of this, because it is a flawed process.
I think if we get to that point where there is this placement, it's going to be, your vigilance in the area in your neighborhood. It's really what it's going to come down to. Even with GPS services, it sounds great. Even with perfect cell service, there's satellite drift that can show that offender, at least the point of the actual transmitter, usually on the offender's leg, that there's some place where maybe they're, not exactly. So there is some of that issue. There's issues around active versus passive GPS. And when people hear GPS, many think that it's active, that somebody is on the other end looking at a computer screen, watching that person where they're going. That's more than likely not going to be the case in this offender's situation. It's going to be passive, where thereby somebody the next day, I don't know, the next week, will look at the points of where that offender went, like if they were allowed to go to the store, to see if that's essentially what they did, or did a point all of a sudden veer off and they're over in this neighborhood that maybe there is a school. There's all of those things, but unless you have a human being on the other end of that, observing what's happening, or at least reviewing what's happening, you're not going to know of those violations. And I think the lady before you talked about technical violations. That would be a technical violation if they do something wrong. We would return that person to custody. Who's going to be doing that in this situation? I can't tell you.
Right. I would add to it. I would add tree cover also could probably inhibit.
It can.
And we have lots of trees in that area.
It can, but it really takes some expertise on the human being that's hooking that up. And again, we do regular visits. We make sure that the device itself is still in good working condition, because who knows what they might do to it in between visits. So we're going to check all those. Is the battery being charged? Does power go out there? And then power runs out on the transmitter. Who's going to respond to find out what's going on? Those are all valid questions.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank each of you individually for being here and for, fighting this, making the opposition known, and for all of the good reasoning, and just not giving up. So thank you very much. Really, really do appreciate it.
Sergeant Ham, do we have anybody on Zoom that's raised their hand? Okay, so we'll continue with these last three from the audience, and then we'll get to the Zoom.
Good evening. Excuse me, good evening. I'm Tori Gibson. I'm the superintendent of the Amador County Unified School District, as well as the Amador County Office of Ed. Good to see you again. I know Mr. Reeby and Sheriff Redmond, we have spoken today. We have formally submitted our letter in opposition. I sent it to one of your staffers today, and I have submitted it to both of you. I'm happy to send it to you, to Mr. Benini, if you'd like to see it. One of our biggest concerns is, a couple major things. Liberty Healthcare never reached out to the school district, whether it be to my office, whether it be to my deputy superintendent's office, or to our transportation department. One of the most concerning statistics for us is we have 18 bus stops just on Shake Ridge alone. And those buses don't stop once a day, they stop twice a day. So that means for the school district then that we are going to have to find a way to monitor all of Shake Ridge in the morning, where students often stand out there with their friends and wait for a school bus. Or it means we'll have to completely change up our routing, because currently one of our bus stops is at the base of the shared driveway of some of the individuals that spoke this evening. It's a huge safety concern. As a superintendent, it is my job to advocate for our youngest children, specifically in this situation, as well as our families. I don't feel that a person of this nature belongs in a county, especially as rural as that particular home is located. It's right next to the BLM land. There's lots of issues with it. I think it's all been said tonight. But I just wanted to make it very clear of the opposition from the school district, and I stand here on behalf of the school board as well and the county board, specifically in relation to those bus stops. School-wise, you know, there is some distance, but again, it's not necessarily a high-traffic area up country, and that is the biggest concern. I just wanted to make sure that, Senator, you did receive the letter from Mr. Sharif today, and that was part of it. We also did send it to the Placer County court, to specifically the judge. So, thank you so much.
Superintendent Gibson, if you could, what goes into the selection of an approved school bus stop?
Oh, boy, we would need our CHP commissioner here for that to help us, but there's a lot. You have to have specific turnarounds, you have to have specific stopping points that are safe depending on the roadways. It is a major feat to add and change bus locations. We get hundreds of requests every school year. Everyone wants to stop in front of their house, which I don't blame them for. But unfortunately, we can't accommodate that. But there are by law, there are things that have to happen in order to make those stops changed. And that all has to be approved through CHP. Yeah, we can't just turn around buses in certain locations. We can't have them on a blank curve, which of course upcountry makes it much more difficult. The only time that we change our routing systems is if we have inclement weather, and then we do corridor busing and we don't veer off of 88. Usually in normal years, that's rare. This year's the anomaly, as we all know, with weather. But it is quite a challenge. If someone is placed here, let's say in July, like you were talking about, or beginning of August, we start school in August.
Yeah.
So we would desperately need to scramble, which means I would probably need to hire staff to be monitoring that particular area for students. We'd probably condense some bus stops so that we had more students at a bus stop so that they weren't as spread out. We'd obviously work with Sheriff Redmond and his staff just to make sure that we had all safety protocols in place for students.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm not the best of words, so I tried to write this this morning, bright and early. And I care about every child in Amador County. I think Mark knows why. Todd does. We've known each other for years. But I try to condense as much as I could. If you'd like any more information, or if there's any time I can be of help, not just now, in the future, anything I can say or do, or anybody I can write, or the people I have contact with to back you up. I'll start out with what I wrote. Hello, my name is John Starr. I lived in Amador County for over 40 years now. And if anybody wants to contact me, I am in the Volcano and Amador County phone directories. So I have over 35 years of experience volunteering with children, youth guidance, and education in Amador County alone, not counting the other places I've lived. I am speaking out not just for myself, but for the thousands of children I have encouraged throughout my life, and for all the children in the future. I temporarily oversaw children who came into my life through Amador County Youth Justice System at the request of Judge Ryan, Judge Howard, and Judge Harlan, along with the Probation Department, Mike Rilatich, and Mark Giannini, and Sheriffs Ken Blake and Mike Prismich. I oversaw and helped with seminars for the Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, and church youth groups. I gave mine, heart and soul for our youth. I encouraged them to get a good education, live a promising and wholesome life. Most of all, I taught them as best as I could to be honest, fair, and trustworthy individuals so that they have the solid foundation for a good conscience. I always believed what my father told me: he who loses his conscience has nothing left to lose, because that's what tells us what's right or wrong, what we should do and not do. I feel that I'm qualified to speak for the safety and protection for all the youth in the community. I only want the best for our children so they can have a good future. We do not, all capitalized, need a known or unknown person or persons who would be a possible harm or risk to our children, and I would say in any way. I speak against transplanting or condoning any such person in our fine county community. It's been a very beautiful county for me. I've enjoyed living here all this time. I'm not as active as I was because of failing health, and I'm doing the best I can, but if anybody needs me, I'm there. I speak against transplanting, speak against it, and take this with you, because I'm speaking for many people. Children I've worked with, thousands. I have many people that come to me for resource and information, and they listen to what I say, most of them. And the ones that don't usually come back later and say, I wish I did. I don't want any of these type people here at any time for any reason. I say we keep continuing to protect our youth in every possible way there is, as long as it's legal and right and fair by God. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Daniel Perano. I live in Volcano, about a mile or so up the road from the proposed residence. My wife and two young daughters, one 3, one month old, live with me. And first off, I'd like to thank the extraordinary ongoing effort that I've seen from you all on this. It is far in excess of what I expected to see, and it's very heartening to see you fighting for all us this way. I have a question primarily for Senator Alvarado and Mr. Reeby. Mr. Reeby, you related a similar circumstance that had happened in Santa Cruz, where lo and behold, a new school appeared, and based on current demographic trends here tonight, I think we're likely to see an explosion of new schools and parks in that area. So my question is, at the county and the state level, what legal resources are available to anybody who'd be interested in doing so? And especially in light of the situation that you had related, where the judge had applied some scrutiny to the date at which the school opened. So I was just wondering what resources are available for families or other citizens in that department.
Well, I'm not really prepared to speak to how to establish a school. I do know that this was a private school. I would think it would be much easier to establish a private school than it would be to do a public school, because we have public schools. And we have their leader here tonight. I would think that it would be easier to go the other route. And it might be something that you might want to consult with an attorney, a civil attorney, or somebody who specializes in education law, to make sure that you do it right and have all the associated permits.
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm going to keep it really short. I have a couple of questions because I agree with what everybody has said. I'm concerned with the future, and maybe the senator or Todd can tell me, is there anything in the law that talks about daycare centers or women who babysit more than one child for daycare? And if not, is it possible you could consider putting that in so it's not an official school?
I think the schools in particular have to be K through 12, within a quarter mile of a private or public K through 12.
But what about preschool or just daycare?
If you had a
centers?
I had 4 kids, so I had to put them all in preschool. There are certain preschools, ours were in a Montessori, that had a kindergarten component so our kids actually had the equivalent of kindergarten before they would have normally had kindergarten. If you I would think if you included kindergarten, that would qualify as a school.
Okay.
And we have several, I think, in our community, daycare / primary / kindergarten in our community.
Okay, I don't know if any are near that address, but
No.
the other thing is, even if you called emergency services, where I live is upcountry, Amador Pines area, it's up, whether you have cell service or not, even, I don't know if you have any sway with GPS, but many of their addresses that they give over when you look them up are wrong. And so it would take them a while to get to where you were going. We've had some problems up there. So I don't know if you can get them to do a review of their system to correct the addresses or not. The other thing with third-party contracts, openbooks.com just recently, this last year, did a audit on third-party contractors in different departments. And if they've been doing, Liberty has been going on for this long, and that amount of money is given out through our tax dollars to rent to these people, I think maybe you could do a little research and see where all the money went. So thank you for doing this, and we're back. We're supporting you, so thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Paul Yorinda. I walk out my driveway and it's right there. So my question was, is tomorrow at the meeting, would it be possible, could it be even dropped everything that Liberty doesn't show up, or is it just going to be rescheduling? Or do you even know?
You know, it's my understanding that the hearing, we were told today, email conversation with Judge Horse, clerk. She said the hearing for Friday will be vacated tomorrow because the judge feels that even though the law that was in effect when he found extraordinary circumstances is not the law today, that the law changed, and he feels that they should be following the new law. So he's going to go back in time before he found extraordinary circumstances and give us the information that he would be required to give us under the new law, the amended law, which is great because now we're in the dark. But then we will know what efforts that they've taken. How closely did they look at Amador County? The sheriff's inquiry found that the lady that's in charge of the ConRep program, Dr. Bagwell, for Liberty Healthcare, they were not aware when they looked at this proposed placement that there was a school bus stop there. Because they didn't bother to check with the school superintendent's office. So these are the kinds of things that we would be able to look at and be knowledgeable when we spoke with them. The other thing that the court is going to look at is I made a request for a number of documents. Maybe I requested more than the new law would offer. I think that the court wants to hear my position on that, and I'm gonna give it. And I'm paying $27.50 for it. So they're gonna hear from me one way or the other. And hopefully they say that I can get what they have, and that would be good, because I asked for a lot.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, I have the court order, and it says right at the bottom, should the court vacate the finding, the court will file a written ruling explaining its reasoning, and the April 7th, 2023 date will not be necessary. New dates will be set in accordance with the statutory requirements, and it goes back to the new requirements that we will be involved.
Okay, so there's some question on that.
So.
From Liberty.
Yes, and as far as it, the entire matter being dismissed tomorrow, no,
Okay.
that won't happen.
And I was confronted Liberty when he showed up and he wouldn't tell me nothing. I had to really drill him just to even get a name. And, so they were negligent on that. I do want to thank you guys for all, I've talked to you before for representing us, and all the people out here in TV and everybody just doing a super job. And like, since I was an old coach, there's no I in team, and we got to keep it up as a team. Thank you very much.
Agreed, thank you. Sergeant Ham, let's go to Zoom.
Yeah, so we have a few Zoom participants who've been waiting patiently. We'll start with last of Lane. If you can unmute, introduce yourself.
Hi.
Yeah, we can. Go ahead.
I've been listening to, can you hear me?
Yes.
I've been listening, I agree with what everybody's saying. I just wanted to say, so my background, I'm a real estate agent, but in the Bay Area when I lived there, I was a volunteer for Sentencing Alternative Services. And that's a program where they have juveniles that, it's kind of like the Liberty program where the parents in the state can pay money so the kids don't have to do time, and then they monitor what happens. I will tell you, at one time I had 30 kids under me, and there was no monitoring at all by Sentencing Alternative Services. They never got back to me. I told them that I would not take on any charges that were people that was gang-related or any violence to people. They had 3 kids in my program that fit that, and I had to dismiss them from my program. They never checked with anything. They did a background check on me and had me do fingerprints and never touched base with me ever again in the entire time that I had these kids. But at the end of the day, I want to tell you, almost every kid in my program was a sexually molested child. And I got to know these kids really well, and they told me, and then they became juveniles because there was never any help for them to get past it. Sorry. It seems like there's more money to protect the violators than the victims. And he may not be able to stop him from coming, but we could get him out. So my recommendation for people is get out on the street and protest, to write those letters, to go to the county courthouse in Placerville, and to fight to keep him out. There's no reason why we have to sit silently. This is a great county. If you heard some of the victim stories, you would know why this is terrible. We cannot let this person in our county. We can't let this person in our county because he is getting a second chance, but the victims don't get a second chance. They live with this for the rest of their life. Get out, protest, write those letters, show up at the courthouse, put signs out, make posters with his picture on them, put them on every single telephone pole, on every electrical pole, in every store. Keep him out. Write letters to the landlords. I can get that address for you. Let them know that this is completely unacceptable. They would think their money talks and bullshit walks. Well, there is no bullshit in Amador County. Keep him out. We can do it if we work together. Thank you.
Right next, Alyssa Perkins, you can unmute yourself and join the conversation. Alyssa, are you there? Okay, we'll go to Catherine. You can unmute your device. Introduce yourself.
Hi, my name is Catherine Evett, and I live about 1 mile east of the proposed location for Mr. Stevenson. My husband and I have lived here since 1980, and so while we don't have children, we have watched our friends and our neighbors raise their children here with a real sense of safety and security. One of the wonderful things about living in rural Amador County is that children are free to roam around the county and roam the outdoors, explore the outdoors without being concerned about their safety. To locate a sexually violent predator in this rural area, which has few services and is far from shopping and other amenities, as people have pointed out, would be just a travesty. But even more than that, it would be just a very tragic thing to happen to a community that people move to in order for their own sense of safety and security. And so I want to thank everybody on the dais today and everybody who has appeared at the hearing, the town hall today, written letters to the editor and written other letters, and to the authorities, which I have done, to protest this. This gentleman belongs in Placer County. There is no reason he should be in Amador County, and we need to stand together strong as a community in opposition to this proposed placement. Thank you.
Alyssa Perkins, are you there? You can unmute your device and introduce yourself. About Jenny Terry, you can unmute your device.
Got it. Thank you. I'm Jenny Terry. I live in Fiddletown, and I'm an investor, and I'm thinking along those lines, what responsibility, if any, does the property owner have to protect the community and neighbors?
Another flaw in this program is zero.
And I always think of that as part of my responsibility as a landowner. Yeah, it's really sad. Everyone, I just want to thank everyone for your time and dedication to the community, and for everyone who's spoken. Certainly, you know, the property owner, their information is public record and accessible, and we can certainly contact the property owner by mail or whatever means we have, peacefully, of course. Yeah, it's sad to think that someone might buy property just for this purpose, although I understand it could be lucrative, but geez. Very sad. That's all.
Thank you.
Right, Alyssa, are you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Sorry, I had some computer difficulties. My name's Alyssa. I was born in this county, raised in Pioneer, currently reside in Pioneer. I have two daughters, 11 and 13. I specifically chose to stay in this county for the fact that I can let my kids go out and be kids. You know, up here we worry more about them seeing a bear than a human. let alone a violent human. So I know earlier, and I apologize if anything's been answered, I could not sit through the whole meeting. I know earlier it was said that CONREP is supposed to work with county officials on a safety plan if this individual does get placed here, but they have yet to work with us on anything. So what makes us certain that they're going to work with us once he does get placed here and there's not much we can do about it after that point? Is kind of one of my questions.
Those are definitely some of the challenges we face, and the District Attorney Reeby and I have already talked about possible litigation if it does come to this. I know the Board of Supervisors are supporting all of our efforts and joined in writing a letter, and I'm thankful for that. They've also talked about the possibility of litigation if it does come to that.
The code provides for a written affidavit to be filed in the event that they make a decision to place Mr. Stephenson in Amador County. We go redo it, there's extraordinary circumstances, and they do it according to the new law. I have 15 days to file a written affidavit. Now, we'll put everything in the kitchen sink in that if we ever get to that point.
Okay, and then my next question, and I know this was sort of already addressed, but if he does get placed here, would there be any ways to, I guess, up our police presence on Shake Ridge specifically before and after school, just so he does kind of know that we are there and watching him?
We will do everything in our power. As everybody knows, we are short-staffed. It's, you know, we're in a hiring, not a hiring freeze. We're in an area where we can't even recruit and retain deputies to even come into this career. I promise we will do everything we possibly can, working with probation, working with our other law enforcement partners in this county to make sure that he is monitored and holding Liberty's feet to the fire of that 24-hour supervision.
Okay.
Posse comitatus, it may come to that.
Thank you guys for all that you've done, and I hope by the end of this they know that they have definitely picked the wrong county to mess with, because we are not individuals that just sit by and let these things happen. So thank you.
Great.
All right, Scott Wagner, you know, unmute your device.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate all that I've heard tonight. I live just a short distance from the address that this person is going to live at, and I have 3 little boys. I appreciate any effort you can put into not allowing this person or whatever we can do to keep this person away from our address. You know, it has been mentioned earlier about the BLM land, and I feel as though, yes, since it is being cleared for forest fires, it is such an easy thing for this person to walk across that BLM land into our property, and possibly it become a thing with our boys. It really concerns me. It really concerns me. I really appreciate everything that everyone is doing to make sure that this person is placed somewhere else. I understand that it is difficult, but I certainly appreciate any effort that can be done to keep this person away from this area, our area. Yes, thank you.
All right, and finally we have Carol Skelly. You can unmute your device.
Good evening. My name is Carol Skelly. I live up here in Pioneer. Looks like maybe it's only a few miles away from the proposed location. Wanted to kind of piggyback off of what Jenny Terry had asked as far as holding the property owner liable for using their property in this manner. Sounds like we know that it's already a flaw in the system, but would it be possible to explore or drafting legislation in the future that would be, I guess, similar to a CCNR, where it would not allow homeowners or investors to use their property in this manner? I know nobody really wants to have, Big Brother tell us what we can do with our property, but when it comes to the best interest of the community and to prevent from matters like this from recurring, if we could have a law in place that says, no, investors, not in Amador County.
I will let the lawyer speak about this, but I see some constitutional issues with trying to do this. We have talked about maybe developing some ordinances. I can tell you that is an uphill battle as far as, the constitutional rights of people that we cannot infringe on. As heinous as it is sometimes, the Constitution does outweigh some of the inherent risks.
Okay. It's unfortunate when it comes to the greater good of the community and especially the youngest, most vulnerable population. But also wanted to kind of, just end on a note that very much appreciate everybody's efforts. I first saw this on Facebook, could not believe it, but was also very appreciative and proud of the fact that our sheriff was very transparent and was supporting us and rallying around us and asking us to rally around him. So happy to do it.
Thank you. Clayton.
I do have one question, probably for you, Todd, is that if a homeowner rents their house to somebody who's cooking meth, they can be held responsible. Okay, why can't we hold a homeowner that does this responsible for endangering our community?
Well, I hear what you're saying, and if I was in the neighborhood, I would be livid. The SVP law doesn't allow for that. Civilly, we do have such a thing called the right of quiet enjoyment of your property. I don't know if, and quite frankly, if an SVP isn't interfering with quiet enjoyment of your property, I don't know what else does. Yeah. I don't know if there would be a cause for action, though, because the state has seen fit to do this. So that is something for somebody that practices in that area, property law in particular, to see if there's an avenue where there might be a civil action that can be taken against the property owner who's leasing the property.
And if I could ask, I mean, there's been a lot of information put out there, and you've given us a lot of information that you all have. Could I ask that you collate that and disseminate it to us, not in a story form, but just facts so we can use when we write our second and third letters?
I'll volunteer to assemble that if the gentleman and Senator Alvarado Gil will send me their arguments, their statements, to put that into something, and we can put it out on our various websites, Facebook pages, if that's okay.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Proud to have all of you.
Thank you.
With my name in your name.
I apologize for taking a second bite of the apple. Failure to plan is a plan for failure. And should this go sideways on our community and we're stuck with this, I'd like to request another town hall meeting so that we can brainstorm and bring good ideas together that are viable. If we're stuck with this in our lap, we have to come up with some defense system. So a town hall meeting is requested, if we could do that again.
Absolutely.
I will just say that no one up here at the diocese is going to give up.
Right.
We're going to do everything in our power to not get to that point, but
Okay.
I think bringing the community together.
Thank you.
We're in this together.
My neighbor pointed out to me that should this also be foisted upon us, when homeowners go to sell their property, they have to disclose who's in the neighborhood. Well, we can wave goodbye to our property values.
All right, keep this going.
Glenn Calloway, Pine Grove. I just had one question. Is Liberty Health protected in any way from lawsuit?
No, they're a private
That's what I thought,
company,
too.
so yes.
So should everything go in the worst possible way, they've shown negligence. It would seem that they would be open to a huge lawsuit. So,
And that's why we've already been talking litigation.
great, thank you.
I have one more Zoom participant that has a question.
Go ahead. Go ahead on Zoom.
Jenny, you can unmute.
Hold on, sir. We've got
Thank
somebody
you.
on Zoom.
Jenny Terry, once again, I was just thinking that should someone want to begin some kind of a lawsuit against the company or the property owner and they wanted to create a GoFundMe account, I would be happy to contribute that way.
Thank you.
And that's all.
Thank you, and that's what I love about this county. Go ahead, sir.
Mark Farron from Pine Grove. Once again, thanks to all you folks. You were born for such a time as this. I'm wondering, the header on the email that we had like over 100 people here, would the header be the ConRep program? Is that the first one? And then add dsh.ca.gov and then put carbon copies to everybody else? Or how would we like to present that so we could show solidarity and that we're all together?
The email is libertysvpconrep@libertyhealth.com.
Could you repeat that one more time?
Liberty SVP conrep@libertyhealth.com. And we'll make sure we get this information out. I know it's already been posted, KVGC and us and
Okay, great.
Senator Alvaretto, but we'll make sure we keep pushing this forward.
Would it help to carbon copy Judge Horst? And if so, how do you spell his name?
H-O-R-S-T, it's the Honorable Garen, G-A-R. The Honorable Garen, G-A-R-E-N-J, Horst, H-O-R-S-T, Placer County Superior Court, Department 4, 101 Maple Street, Auburn, California, 95603.
All right, thanks again.
Thank you.
DA Reeby, I just wanted to let you know that somebody already sent an email or a letter to that address and it was returned.
Oh.
So there is a more general one that's in, where is it? It's in the. So Placer County Superior Court, go to their webpage, and they have a P.O. box in Roseville that's a more general address that you could send that letter to the judge.
I'll also add that my representative Dana Jorgensen is in the back with copies of our letter, and it has addresses on there as well. So if you want to pick one up on your way out or now, we'll have that for you.
Good evening. I want to piggyback. I'm David Carlson. I've been a real estate broker here in Amador County for 45 years, and I want to echo what the gentleman said about disclosure. That's absolutely an impact on property values. And whether or not constructive knowledge ahead of time that you're taking an action. Now, I'm an advocate of private property rights, so I'm kind of stepping on the other side now. But if you actively know that you're doing something that could impact your neighbor's property values, forget all the other parts of it, I think that might be grounds for a class action lawsuit.
Thank you. So we're good on Zoom. Anybody else? Okay, it's been a long evening, and once again, I really want to thank everybody for coming. We had a packed house tonight. We had, KVGC obviously live streaming this. We had some local media here from Channel 3 and Channel 40. Really, it's, and people have said this, it takes all of us working together to stop this from happening. And I'm so thankful to see the outpouring of this community just coming together as one for something so important. It really shows what Amador County is all about. So once again, I'm extremely appreciative for everybody coming out tonight. And thank you. If the panel, if anybody has any closing statements?
I want to thank Gary, Sheriff Redmond, for putting this together. I want to thank everybody here that's attending, Mark Bonini, Chief Probation Officer, Senator Alvarado Gill, and all of you that care enough about your communities, about your children, about your friends and neighbors to attend today to get the information necessary so you can be dangerous on this issue and be informed and be an advocate because the fight is just beginning. We live to fight another day. If they come back to Amador County, we're going to be ready for them. And it's going to take all of us.
Absolutely. Thank you, everybody. Supervisor Brown, thank you for attending tonight. Appreciate it.